Welcome, Priyanka. Thank you so much for joining me on the note. I'll start off by saying that politics is indeed a strange place to be in. I mean, you're a fine politician. I think one of the most dynamic young female politicians that I can, look at currently in Parliament. You're a Rajya Sabha member of Parliament. You move from the Congress party to the Shiv Sena, and now you find yourself in a strange kind of alliance in the state with your former party members. How has that experience been for you as a politician?
It has been a very pleasant experience for me. Of course, there was some unpleasantness when I quit, but I chose to maintain the dignity of discourse even when I quit. While there were several vile attacks on me, but I continue to ensure that I did not fall down to those levels. However, I think at the end of it all, both the parties coming together and forming an alliance and uh, being part of the government in the state has been good, and all of them have been welcoming and have been also supporting me and helping me wherever they can as far as understanding the parliamentary procedure is concerned. So I would say I look at everything as half glass full, as in a positive manner. I hold no grudges. I hold no brief for anything or anybody. So yes, it's been nice.
Let's talk about the Shiv Sena, right? Would you agree with the assessment that, under the leadership of Uddhav Thackeray, the party has somewhat smoothened its rough edges? I mean, from being seen as a party that was ready to get on the streets and, follow a firebrand kind of style of politics, it's now somehow become more mild, for lack of a better word. Would you agree with that assessment?
Actually, I would look at politics as something and political parties as something that continue to raise the voices of the people and match up to the aspirations of the people and what they expect of political parties to do. So every
Hmm.
party that stops evolving after a period of time will stop growing as well, or stop, getting more people on their side, or conveying to them what they're looking at and what they are working towards. So every political party reinvents itself. It also evolves itself. It looks at the changing dynamics of the society, and what politics was needed perhaps a decade ago may not be the similar politics that the next decade needs. So
Hmm.
the more you evolve, I would say the more you're willing to change as per the expectations of the people. I think those political parties are the ones which will continue to serve the purpose of the people and work with the society at large. So what you see in Shiv Sena, of course, because of different leadership, we had Bala Sahib Thackeray, who was, of course, the leader, and he continues to inspire us and inspire every single party worker. And not just in Maharashtra, across the world, he is someone who's still remembered, whether it was his fiery speeches, his oratory, and what he did for the people of the city and the state. Moving on, I think as far as Shiv Sena is concerned, under different leadership under Uddhav Bala Sahib Thackeray, we do understand what the changing aspirations of people are, the state is, and we work as per what they expect us to do, and we serve as per what their expectations of a political party are. So yes, I would say change is the only constant in life, and every political party that refuses to change is condemned to the pages of history.
Interesting. BJP has been a long time friend of this Shiv Sena, right? An ally for the longest time, suddenly has turned foe. Um would you say that, as many commentators and many of your friends would also say, that this is politics of opportunism? Can you say with a certain degree of certainty that the Shiv Sena will never align with the BJP again, given the kind of statements that come from you, Sanjay Raut, and other leaders of the Shiv Sena? It almost seems that now the BJP is pariah for the Shiv Sena.
I don't know if you would have observed when Shiv Sena was part of the alliance also with the Bharatiya Janata Party. Shiv Sena continued to speak up as the voice of the people and what they expected a political party to do. irrespective of its alliance. This is something which I would say has brought in a tremendous amount of goodwill and credibility for the party, and it continues to be the driving force in Maharashtra, where it sets the terms of engagement. So I wouldn't call it opportunism. I would be very clear that there were some agreements, some principal disagreements, and some promises that were unkept and promises which were broken. And the alliance can only continue if there is a mutual sense of respect and mutual sense of understanding that both parties have to grow together. One cannot grow at the expense of another. If you look at Bharatiya Janata Party's trajectory, they are rising on the back of various regional parties. Now their long-standing ally Shiromani Akali Dal also has broken away from them. So BJP, like all political parties I spoke about, evolved. BJP also has evolved into something which was not the similar BJP with which Shiv Sena aligned with. So as far as going back to BJP is concerned, I think that is categorically ruled out with the kind of I would say attacks and personalized attacks that came across after the alliance broke up, after we came into power, and the targeting that happened, where it was absolutely the lowest of low kind of discourse that the country witnessed, and the attacks that were witnessed. I think it would be extremely difficult for both the sides to ever reconcile on these matters.
But some would say that it's...
There are certain issues, there are certain boundaries you do not cross. But I think, and we've maintained those boundaries because we believe that personal lives and personal relationship should not get into the political discourse. That is not the case with the Bharatiya Janata Party, where they've formed I think it's a pattern of Sam Dam Dand Bhed, where they will follow every trick in their books to continue to demean, continue to trouble, continue to behave badly as far as politics is concerned. So there is a certain boundary to even political parties and their attitude. That does not seem to be coming from the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Can you elaborate on what these boundaries are that you feel that the BJP has kind of, crossed time and again?
There were certain issues that when the alliance also broke up, everybody knows the reason for the alliance to break up. Certain commitments were made when the alliance came about, and this alliance came about at a time when Bharatiya Janata Party was not too sure about its second coming and coming with a majority. And certain commitments were made with regards to the state elections as well, and that is why this alliance happened. And for them to go back on their promises, the commitment which came from the highest leadership, senior-most leadership of the BJP was in a manner, I would say, crossing a boundary of having mutual faith and trust in an alliance, followed by when I say personal attack and personal targeting, insinuations, the world witnessed how social media was used to try and undermine people, undermine their work, undermine how things were happening in the state. Lots of rumors, lots of fake stories, lots of hate-driven agenda, lots of string pulling by using the ED, CBI, etc. I think those are boundaries where you move from political issues to personalized attacks. I think those are the boundaries which every political party needs to respect. However, this is what was not possible.
Would you be referring in particular to how Mr. Aditya Thackeray has been targeted in the past 1 year, especially, being dragged into various controversies that we saw? Is that what you're referring to? That's when you say that personal boundaries have been crossed?
Yes, I mean, it is not just one incident such as what was happening with Shri Aditya Thackeray. Someone who was doing a tremendous job at a young age, coming as an MLA, handling his constituency as well as handling a ministerial role with regards to tourism and environment, but trying to divert the attention of the people from the work at hand and what work needs to be done in Maharashtra. It became a personal all-out attack using fake bots, fake stories, fake narratives. And we all witnessed how Maharashtra came under attack from various sources. And a lot of influence, you continue to target Mr. Raut, Mr. Raut's family, you send an ED for inquiries. So those are, I mean, there's just not one individual. There are several more who have been targeted. So I believe that in a system, you need to you can have opposing point of view, but you cannot have an imposing sense of self where you can put yourself everywhere and try and demean someone else and pull them down.
By that same argument, are you also referring to the fact that you have raised a point about Maharashtra being ignored in the budget that was announced by the finance minister? Do you think that same kind of treatment is being meted out to Maharashtra because you and the BJP were former allies and, parted on a bad note?
No, there are a couple of issues here. Since I represent Maharashtra in the Rajya Sabha, it becomes imperative that when I look at the union budget and living in a country which respects federal structure, and we've had the Prime Minister who was also the Chief Minister of Gujarat speaking about cooperative federalism, and when we don't see that coming, you're bound to raise questions. For example, Mumbai, the world knows, the world recognizes, the world understands that it is the financial capital of the country. And for you to, take IFSC away to another new hub that you're trying to create in Gujarat, while we can have various such capitals, we can have smart cities across the country. Why just Gujarat? We promote it everywhere. But for you to give tax breaks, tax incentives, talk about IFSC, talk about fintech hub, etc., only in a particular city, while ignoring the rest, which are already not just have a set of ecosystem there, instead of enhancing that ecosystem, you try and through your vindictive attitude, you try and ignore that, which is unfortunate. The world looks at Mumbai as a global hub. The world looks at Mumbai as a global melting pot of a city which attracts one of the best businesses in the world and one of the safest cities in the country. And for y'all to continue to deny Maharashtra, and it's not just about Maharashtra. You have only concentrated on states which are election-going states. This is not a manifesto reading event. This is this is something that people look up to and wait for to understand how their entire financial planning would happen. So you cannot ignore states at the expense of your politics, and that is when it becomes unfortunate when a chief minister, who's now the prime minister, speaks about cooperative federalism. Suddenly chooses to have selective federalism in states which are election bound, or as well as those which have the Bharatiya Janata Party at the helm. That is where I think the problem rises, and that is why I spoke about.
So I'll come back to the same question that I was trying to ask all this while. What ideologically is the difference between you and the BJP? You both believe in the in the abrogation of Article 370, the Ram Mandir, ban on Pakistan artists. So if somebody were to look at these two parties, you and the BJP within Maharashtra, say for instance, what would you say is ideologically the difference between the two? Because I can't find too many differences there.
No, in terms of ideology, I think Bharatiya Janata Party, as far as 370 is concerned, yes, we stood by 370, and we believe that even for that matter, I would say the Congress Party under Jawaharlal Nehru believed the same, that we would initiate as Article 370, and we will repeal it once people of Jammu and Kashmir, totally are part and find themselves as an integral part of the land. They will revoke that. That was something that even the Congress Party began with. What happened later is a matter of politics for various parties which were in power in Jammu and Kashmir. So that does not have to be about ideology. It is something which is very categorically a commitment to a nation which is integrated from all sides, a nation which has given respect to federal structure, but cannot show favoritism to certain states. So that is one part of it. As far as Ram Mandir is concerned, Ram Mandir was not a matter of our politics. It is a matter of our faith. And as far as while Bharatiya Janata Party used it to convert into votes, we continue to believe that it is a matter of faith, and we should respect the sentiment behind it. And we were amongst the first political parties when the Supreme Court verdict came in, that we went and visited, our Chief Minister visited Ayodhya. In terms of differences in ideology, I think it is about how you implement changes. When you talk about ideas, how you bring about those changes when you're implementing an idea, when you're taking people along, when you convince them that this is the right India. What Bharatiya Janata Party is doing and has continued to do is to impose an idea that they believe is right without taking the stakeholders into this. We believe in the parliamentary democracy. We believe that every issue needs to be discussed, debated. That dissent is important. While being in an alliance, we were dissenting on issues that we did not agree with. So I think it has to be, our ideology is about people-driven work, and including everyone as a stakeholder and convincing them about these ideas. It is not Bharatiya Janata Party's idea like we are seeing with the farm laws, where they believe that farmers should be convinced that this is the best thing to have happened to them, while the farmers continue to say this is not what they want.
Interesting. I love the fact that you use the word dissent, because that's what I want to come to next. What's happening in the country? What, according to you, is the current atmosphere? We have a singer, an international singer, who puts out her personal opinion, and suddenly there's a statement coming from the Ministry of External Affairs. We have the government of Bihar, the police of Bihar, actually coming out with the notification that if you're part of a government protest or an anti-government protest, then you will not be eligible for a government job or a government contract. I mean, what is going on according to you?
Exactly. This is imposing ideas which people are protesting against, in that belief that only the Bharatiya Janata Party knows what is best for the country while others don't. What I found extremely amusing but also saddening at the same time is, while every single Indian has an opinion about what happened at the Capitol Hill, I was part of the Rajya Sabha discussion today where Capitol Hill was mentioned several times over and compared to India. And we feel free to talk about it in our parliament as well. But when somebody else comments on what's happening in India, an individual, I'm not talking about an elected head of state, because I was the first one to tweet to Mr. Trudeau when he had, made a comment about the farmers' issues, where I said, listen, you as an elected head of the state cannot interfere in our domestic issues. We will resolve it on our own. But when an individual and activists across the world happen to see something which involves banning internet, which involves not providing water to the farmers who are protesting, where it involves barricading, building walls, not providing toilet facilities to them, that is when human rights come in. It is a global, universal issue. It has nothing to do with India or geographical boundaries. Human rights are a universal issue. So by stopping someone from talking about a farmer's issue, and for MEA to come up with a letter in such an arrogant tone and tenor, is extremely unfortunate. Why can't a Rihanna, or for that matter, someone else, comment about what is happening in India as an activist who's interested in an issue? Didn't we talk about Black Lives Matter? Did we? I mentioned Capitol Hill protests being spoken about in the parliament precincts too. So the democracy is about dissent. Democracy, when you ban the internet, when you ban some facilities to the farmers who are dissenting, they're dissenting. They're not desecrating democracy. What you're doing is a desecration of democracy and the constitutional norms by passing those bills first in the parliament in such a hurried fashion, which is unconstitutional. And then you continue to suppress their voices, because democracy allows dissent. And you're suppressing that. So whatever, the MEA statement is actually a confirmation of our intolerance to any comment with regards to support for such causes or such issues.
Some people call it bullying.
Yes, it is. It is bullying, using fake narratives, using anti-national words like anti-national, words like jihadis, Pakistanis, Khalistanis. You are bullying people to shut up. You're bullying. This is listen, I have to tell you this here, Mahrukh, this is the pattern that they follow. So if you have a woman who speaks against the idea of what they believe is the right way to govern, they will bully her in various methods to try and shut her up. Many women leaders, or I wouldn't say leaders, women who were on Twitter stopped discussing politics, and data shows that they stopped discussing politics because they were getting bullied. Now you have started registering FIRs. I believe there's a first FIR registered against one of the social activists of Delhi. Just today, Delhi police has filed an FIR against her tweet. So what you're doing is you are silencing voices, suppressing them through using the powers bestowed on you. And that is a way of bullying people into silence or into agreement. Farmers have not gone as per what they expected, the tried and tested script. And that is why they do not know how to handle it anymore. And they are doing all kinds of, they're putting in all kinds of ideas and efforts to try and discredit the entire protest.
You were in Parliament today. Finally, some time given for the farm protest to be spoken about and debated in Parliament. Do you think government has lost the narrative here, or will it still, by means of controlling it or trying to control it, still have the edge?
No, as far as the government is concerned, and as far as opposition was concerned, we would have really wanted it to be a separate discussion on farmers' issues, a separate debate. Should not have been part of the motion of thanks. But you have a government which refuses to even cooperate or even, accommodate the other side or the opposition. However, the government was forced to give more hours of a motion of thanks, and where we will be able to speak on the farmers' issues. And I personally believe that voices from the parliament need to be reaching out to the farmers, that there are many people in this country who stand in support for them, and we are willing to fight it out inside the parliament. While the government could have betrayed their trust, the government could have betrayed their belief that they will lead a better life under the Modi government. But as opposition, we committed to the people of the country, and whatever their voices are, we can only amplify it through the parliament. And yes, the Bharatiya Janata Party, I would say, is on the back foot by accommodating the opposition demand of giving more time to this particular discussion.
You're also representing Mumbai in a way, and it's been a rough year for the Hindi film industry, something that has been synonymous with the city of Mumbai. Nothing in the budget for the entertainment industry, for the Hindi film industry. We've also seen them have a rough year in terms of the kind of attacks on various innumerable members, I would say, from the industry. It's very interesting that when convenient, the Hindi film industry is used as soft power for the country, and now faces almost the same kind of bullying that we are seeing in other sectors. Do you think this is part of the centre's design, or the BJP's design rather, to take the Hindi film industry out of Mumbai?
They can try their best. It's not going to happen. Honestly, I mean, many have attempted it. Uttar Pradesh did it earlier too. And listen, you cannot stop creativity to flourish in any part of the country. Creativity exists everywhere, and you have to create an ecosystem and environment which gives them all this. Gives them an ecosystem which is safe, which is secure for its women, which has all the facilities available. You have public transport at any given hour of the day. You have a sense of security, sense of well-being, and sense of not being judgmental all the time. The uniqueness of the city of Mumbai is that the people of the city are non-judgmental. Women can work at any hours of the day and feel safe. You have a Mumbai police which works 24/7, 365 days to ensure that women feel safe, and there are no areas which are no-go areas for them. We also have public transport which is in place. So others will have to do a lot of work catching up to even look at trying to move something out of there, which is absolutely, I mean, they're doing that with Gift City also. But as far as we're concerned, we only know we will come back stronger, and we will continue to work towards empowering Mumbai more and more, because that's the genesis of India. The financial capital is the city of Mumbai. Now, with regards to Bollywood, I found it extremely amusing today that the letter from the MEA was in a very coordinated fashion being tweeted.
I saw that tweet of yours.
Many Twitter handles and Bollywood Twitter handles. So I think it is for the Hindi cinema industry to judge whether where do they stand in this side of the debate. Because last 1 year, like you said, it was a very rough period where people were targeted. People were targeted on the basis of fake agenda, fake story, continue to be targeted in a very synchronized fashion. And they also realize that there is no financial support coming from the center. And not just there, also the tourism industry does not see any kind of plan coming forward from this particular budget, where tourism should be one of the priority areas to create more jobs. Tourism should become the most important means of being able to not just use your capital expenditure by creating infrastructure, but you're also getting people to spend money as well as creating livelihoods. But again, zilch on that. So, moving forward, I don't think Bollywood needs some sops. What it needs is a very clear unity as far as keeping politics away from entertainment is concerned. Because the more they indulge, I mean, and I'm speaking without, I would say, it's not my job to tell anybody anything, but the idea would be that they speak as a united front, keeping entertainment away from politics. But unfortunately, it's become a very connected world. So it is
But
for them to
having
decide what they
said
want.
that, Priyanka, the Shiv Sena has also been hard on Bollywood in the past. There have been several times when the Shiv Sena has kind of asked Bollywood to toe the line, has stopped the release of certain films. So your own party has been guilty of doing that. So I hope that you're also trying to say that the Shiv Sena is not going to make Bollywood toe the line.
Mahrukh, what I find very difficult to explain to people at times, and it may be because it has had such an impact, that an incident that happened 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, or maybe 7, 8 years ago,
Hmm.
continues to be spoken about in the current context, which is fine.
Hmm.
However, when I speak and when circumstances have changed, where you can see the visible changes, we discuss less of those and we continue to talk about what happened in the past. Uh, of course, we learn from our past. Of course, we correct ourselves from the past. Of course, we also rework on how we, as a political party, are. So, whatever has happened, of course, has happened in the past, and we have spoken several times about it. And Bollywood, in fact, I would say, when people who live in Mumbai would know how closely Hindi cinema has been with working alongside Shiv Sena, and how Shiv Sena has continued to make it a very safe environment for the Hindi film industry. So more than the negatives, there are more positives in that understanding of that equation, understanding of that relationship. And I just hope they continue to get stronger, and we will continue to back them.
All right, I like this new Shiv Sena, most definitely, Priyanka, and let's hope it continues that way. Finally, I want to ask you as a woman politician, because that's what fascinates me the most. Uh, what is it to be a member of parliament and a woman in today's India? Do you see the same kind of misogyny, casual sexism still prevalent? Is it hard being a woman politician in India?
Yes, I would say at multiple levels, it has been a tough journey. But I also believe that when you are absolutely clear about what your ideas are and what you are bringing to the table, then there should not be any sense of compromise. Nobody ever should be able to tell you that, a, you know, look at what you've gone and done. You could have done something else. I will choose where I want to be, how I want to be, how I come across. And that is how I will grow in life. When people accuse me of being ambitious, I didn't know ambitious was an abuse. I didn't know having an ambition should be undermined or demeaned. Yes, I'm ambitious. I have targets in my life. I want to be breaking many more barriers, hopefully. But yes, those are I think part of an eco. The society that we live in, where they believe that the decisions will be taken by men and women will just follow them. But there is a change. I see a change happening where men also would want more women voices, and there is support coming from there. Uh, Being in the parliament, yes, Rajya Sabha has much lesser women than Lok Sabha has. We have 14% representation of women in the Lok Sabha, thanks to two regional parties, which gave more tickets to women to contest in the Lok Sabha. And that is why you see a higher rise in numbers. You don't see it because of some changes that came in only post 2014. But in the Rajya Sabha, there are fewer numbers. But what is interesting is that we women get together and we try and ensure that our voices are also heard equally, and we are making that change. And in terms of how does it feel to be a member of parliament, it honestly hasn't really sunk in, because every day when I go to the parliament, I see some disruption happen. Or for last 1 year, we did not even have a parliament session due to COVID. But my entire energy and efforts were to ensure that people of Mumbai came out of COVID, and whatever efforts I could put in, I do my best to do that. So that is how it is, and I just hope our collective journeys as women and our collective voices encourage more women to come in these spaces and acquire spaces they own, not gifted to them. Nothing comes as a gift. We own them. We are just reluctant to claim ownership.
Wonderful. More power to you, Priyanka Chaturvedi. And I hope you speak without fear or favor in the future, and perhaps can also speak without, having any kind of pressure ideologically. Speak from the heart. Continue to do that. And thank you so much for being with me on the note.
Thank you so much. Thanks.